Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the divisional preview as we go out to the West for the final two as we are starting with the NFC West. And oh boy, was there a lot of turnover in this division. We had the Seahawks ousting a Hall of Fame head coach, a Hall of Fame defensive tackle leaving, some interesting stuff, some potential people leaving in San Francisco as we're on day whatever of this whole camp saga with them. This is the NFC West preview. We're going to be going through every team, ranking them, kind of how we see them finishing in this order in this season. We have rookies to talk about. We have some offseason moves to talk about, so it's going to be a fun time. And my father here, who is a diehard Seahawks fan, is going to have a lot to say.
I'll be nice.
Well, up first, we have to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, and I want to talk positively, but I kind of want to get the negative out of the way first. I don't believe in Kyler Murray at this point. He has not proven to be the elite of elites when he's playing, and he doesn't play all the time, so you can't even rely on him to play at average level necessarily. Do you think that the Cardinals are right now in a bit of a buyer's remorse for giving Kyler that big-time contract?
You know, obviously that's what everybody's thinking about, right? It seems like when he came back last year, he had kind of bought into their offense, and he does give him some dynamic playmaking with his legs. We all know that. I think it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen this year, simply because when he struggles or if things don't go the way, or if he doesn't do what the coaches want him to do, will he revert back to the Murray that we saw a couple of years ago or not? Right now, I'd say let's give him the benefit of the doubt because he did toe the line when he played last year, and he has been working hard. So maybe it was just the coaching staff before. Is he my favorite quarterback in the NFL? No. Do I think that he is in the top 10? No. But he can be exciting. So I guess we'll just have to see from there.
Yeah, I do think Kyler has some tools. He's got a phenomenal arm. But the question is, and kind of will always be with him, can he stay healthy? And he just hasn't shown that ability. Let's go to a bit more positives. And before we really talk about other positions, I really wanted to highlight Trey McBride, someone who I think's going to have a big-time breakout year. He started to look really good down the stretch at the end of last season. I would say if you are looking for a tight end fantasy football, he would be one of my top choices. I expect a big-time year for him, probably entering the top 10, maybe even top 5 discussion.
I would say top 5. He was dynamic last year as well.
Yeah, I expect him to get better, especially because the Cardinals' quarterback situation was not good before Kyler, and Kyler did provide them some actual quality play at the position last year. And McBride still produced without him.
No, fair. Definitely very fair. I think he is one of those bright spots in the league and a bright spot for this team.
Yeah, and now to move forward, I mean, it's kind of hard not to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. as the best thing in the offseason because he's a freak. When was the last time a wide receiver entered the league this hyped up?
To be quite honest, I can't tell you the last time. He almost had quarterback hype, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's so weird for a position not named quarterback or maybe even edge rusher because I remember when Myles Garrett was coming in and he was extremely hyped up and that turned out pretty good. We just watched Marvin Harrison. He just is phenomenal back there, and he had a great year with, I would say, very poor quarterback play at Ohio State with Cal McCord. The year prior with C.J. Stroud, really great. I'm sure there's a lot of interest to see how he's going to adjust the NFL, but he just plays at such an elite level, and probably having Marvin Harrison Sr. as your dad to help walk you through, tells you what to do when the going gets tough. Just get that mentality out there. I just don't see him come into the league and not taking over.
Well, I mean, he's got size, he's got speed, he's very good with his hands, he's very good with his route running, right? So I mean, he is in that aspect a complete player. We say it all the time though. We don't know if everything's going to transition. We've seen receivers come in with just, amazing speed in college and great route running, and then they just don't do it. So let's give them once again the benefit of the doubt. That's going to be my motto for the Cardinals this year is the benefit of the doubt, because I do like some of the things that they've done. And to be quite honest, I think Marvin Harrison's going to have a spectacular career, but I just don't want to anoint him yet.
I will. Keen him. I think we have to now look at the rest of their draft class. In their second first round pick was someone you and I were not that high on in Darius Robinson. How do you see him adjusting to NFL tackles and where he's going up against stiffer competition? You can say he was in the SEC. He really didn't play many elite tackles in the SEC last year.
He's a guy, and that's unfortunately for a first round draft pick, you never want to hear that. He's a guy. He flashes against subpar talent, but disappears, a lot during the season as well in games. And so I, as a Seahawks fan, I'm kind of glad that they drafted him. I didn't have actually, to be quite honest, I wouldn't have drafted him until around the third round myself, because I mean he is a good player and he's solid, but he's not explosive, and I just don't have a lot of I don't have a sense that he's going to have a wow factor to him. Not like some of the other draft picks that. Heck, even the Cardinals have taken. I mean, if you look at it, they have done an amazing job drafting the last 2-3 years. In this draft alone, they have 8 of the top 104 picks. 8 of them. That's pretty amazing. And I definitely like some of the players that they had. I really liked Max Melton. I can't remember if you. I can't remember if you liked him. Obviously, according to that, but I liked him. I think he's, he's kind of scrappy. Sometimes he can be a little handsy, but I like him.
I thought he was a fourth round pick, but real quick, because I wanted to say something about Darius Robinson before we continue.
Oh, sorry.
I think at best you're not going to get an elite pass rusher, but with what you can possibly get for him is a solid run defender, and that is crucial when you go against the 49ers every year who are going to run the football. It's crucial when you go against the Rams who are very good scheming the run game, and it's crucial when you go against Seahawks who are going to run the ball. If he can be a good run defender, fine. How many first-round picks just flame out in general? If you can get a guy who can at least contribute in a way that can defend the run, I got no problem with that pick. But if you're expecting him to be an elite pass rusher, I just think you're not getting that.
Do you know who he reminds me of?
Who?
LJ Collier.
Oh, your favorite.
Who just so happens to be on the Cardinals team.
So they like that build of player. They like that type.
I guess. So
Max Melton, I wouldn't say I was like very anti him. I had a fourth round grade on him. As you said, he was very handsy. I never felt like his skills transitioned greatly to an outside corner in the NFL. I think he's going to be a nickel guy who's going to come up and play the run more than anything.
Which, I mean, in this league, you definitely need that. Trey Robinson, running back out of Florida.
Trey Benson.
Trey Benson?
Yes, it's Trey Benson. Trey Benson, I love him, but I hated watching him play because I don't like the Seminoles. He is a very explosive runner. He's got good cuts. He's not easy to bring down on first contact. I wouldn't be shocked, and I love James Conner, if he's the lead back by season's end.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I love James Conner as well. I don't know a lot about Isaiah Adams.
I wasn't a fan of this pick either. I didn't think he had anything that made me go, you should take him in day 2. He was another guy I would have waited till day 3 to pull the trigger. He's solid, fine, but just kind of meh when I look at the other players who were on the board.
Tip Ryman. I actually like Tip Ryman. Do I think that he's going to be a top 32 tight end? No, but he's definitely going to give them depth, and he'll add something to to their offense.
So here's where we disagree, because I think he can be a top 32 tight end in the league. I really liked him a lot, Illinois. I'm kind of sad because, as I just said about Trey McBride is their number 1 tight end. Tip Ryman's not going to get the chance to kind of go with the ones. Maybe they'll do some 2 tight end sets. Who knows? Gannon comes from Philadelphia. I don't remember how much 2 tight end sets they ran his time there, but back in the day, they obviously ran Goddard and Ertz to death.
They did. Elijah Jones from Boston College. I don't know a lot about him.
Day 3 guy.
Well, I mean,
I don't want to sound negative about this Cardinals draft, even though I don't like some of their players, but it's just a lot of them just didn't hit for me. I went back and I even watched them before we even recorded this, and I tried to find my notes from the draft season, and I just came away with the same thought: is these are just kind of guys. I don't mind them if for depth purposes, but they're not guys I want starting on my starting 11.
Fair enough. Taylor Demerson.
Will be a great special teamer.
What you need.
Yes, you need that. I will never complain, especially on day 3. I will never complain about a team just going, he's great at special teams. Just take him. Special teams can swing a game completely, and I believe Demerson can potentially be that type of guy.
How about
Xavier
Thomas?
I feel like he was very misplayed at Clemson, so I didn't really grade him out fully. And this is a theme I've talked about with a lot of Clemson players. I don't think their defense coordinator is that good. I don't think he put the players in the proper position to succeed, so I'm not going to hammer Xavier Thomas for working with a coach I don't think has done a good job there.
Over the last couple of years, we have commented on the fact that it doesn't seem like Clemson defensive players, especially the defensive linemen, are put in the best position to be successful. Yes. They're basically doing it off of talent alone.
And that's what came hard for judging Xavier Thomas, and why I have no problem with the Cardinals drafting him, because it's very possible Gannon is a much better defensive mind, in my opinion, than the guy at Clemson. He could very well pop, because he does have tools.
Christian Jones, an offensive tackle out of Texas in the 5th round.
Serviceable will probably be on the 53-man. I don't know if he's ever going to develop into anything else, but he's a serviceable guy, especially for the 5th round.
I think he'll probably end up on the practice squad.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, they've got Paris Johnson, and Jonah Williams is going to be their right tackle until he gets hurt. They have Kelvin Beachum and Elijah Wilkinson for their backups. So, he'll go developmental. So.
Well, would you argue, though, maybe you keep Jones and lose a Kelvin Beachum, because Beachum is older, we know what he is, and just probably isn't. You don't have as much you can get out of him as you can possibly at Jones if you were to give him more reps.
Well, the problem is, though, if you have Johnson or Jonah Williams that go down, Beachum can go either side. And so,
although, isn't Johnson a guard there now? I thought they moved him inside.
Paris Johnson?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they moved him inside.
Oh, he's on their roster. They're showing him as starting left tackle.
Okay, well then maybe they just played him at guard last year. I just remember him playing guard. Tijuan Palmer. I apologize if I butchered that name. I didn't watch him, and I didn't watch all that much of Jaden Davis from Miami.
Neither did I. Neither did I. So, free agent acquisitions. We already talked about Jonah Williams, DJ Dallas from Seattle. Arizona does like to pick up from the division pretty well. Chris Moore, the wide receiver, Justin Jones, defensive tackle, Bilal Nichols, another defensive tackle. And then, of course, they traded for Desmond Ritter to back up Murray. So,
Who
I mean,
doesn't look to be the backup quarterback right now?
oh, really? Who's looking to be their backup?
Clayton Tune. I watched the Cardinals Broncos game today, and as Tiki Barber and I believe it was Jason McCourty, they said in their conversations that Clayton Tune is in the lead to be the backup behind Kyler.
Huh. Well, interesting. All in all, you have to think that last year Arizona was considered going into the season probably the doorstep of the division, and I mean they didn't win a lot of games, but they were in a lot of games. They fought. They didn't give up on their coach, and they had one of the weaker rosters in the NFL. So, with adding more depth and more players, I really think that they are on the right track to being competitive in the division.
They really felt like first season Dan Campbell in Detroit. Not they're out talented everywhere you look, but man, they're gonna play until the final whistle.
That attitude, yeah. I mean, that's fair to say. This is one of the things I hate doing though, is I hate just pigeonholing team, because what Dan Campbell brought to the Lions was not just that fight on the field, but off the field. And you don't hear anything from Arizona off the field. So I don't like to pigeonhole there. And to be quite honest, I think Dan is one off. I don't think anybody else is like him and creating a team like him.
No, but what I'm trying to say is that they seem to have bought in again, and like Detroit did with Dan, and that is probably a big thing because it didn't feel like at the end of Cliff's tenure anyone bought into him.
Well, no, I mean, he was indecisive. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Time to move on to the Seattle Sea Chickens.
Funny, funny, funny. All right. So you had kind of mentioned this in the draft or in the opener that Seattle had a lot of changes in on their roster this year, and that was both players and of course coaches, right? So we'll start off by saying thank you, Pete, for winning us a Super Bowl and for everything that you've done for the Seahawks and Seattle community.
Also,
Um,
congratulations to Pete Carroll on getting a brand new job.
is he teaching now? Is that what I heard?
He's teaching at the University of Southern California.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, they do like him there. So, yeah. And as much as I was dissatisfied as to how that all transpired, I believe that it was time for Pete to go now. I didn't at the time. I thought that, he should have been given a little more time, but as more things have come out, um, it was time, just by seeing the players, how they're playing in this off season, and the difference in attitude with the players that were there last year as well, right? There's no give. So I think that shows that maybe Pete's message was getting lost, sadly. So it's going to be interesting to see what Mike McDonald does for the team. I'm super excited about this. So I guess with that, we can go into their first round draft pick, Byron Murphy.
Who you loved a lot more than I did. And this is not saying I didn't like Byron Murphy. My guy was Johnny Newton. I thought Byron Murphy was a very good player still. He was one of my, I believe, 17 graded first round players. It was something around those lines. And he was sitting around, I believe, number 14. And he very much showed a lot of film that's going to translate well to the NFL. And I didn't watch a whole bunch of Seahawks preseason, to be completely honest. The one game I did watch was the Chargers game, and I swear he was eating that Chargers O-line alive.
Well, I mean, let's let's just say because they weren't starting their starters either. So I mean that's kind of tough to say. It's really tough in the preseason to, oh my God, he's going to revolutionize or whatever else, because we see teams, in the third and fourth quarter, that players that aren't even going to make the roster have really good games, and then you hear fans say, "Oh my God, it's gonna, they're going to be an All Pro." No, they're not going to make the team, but when they're going up against other third and fourth string players, they're really good. Do I think Byron Murphy is going to be a solid acquisition for Seattle? Absolutely. And let's face it, being next to Leonard Williams, I think that that's going to be nothing but good for him, because he's going to learn a lot. And if you've seen that boy's legs, you know that he can push the pocket.
And
So
another thing I will give Byron Murphy credit for a younger player, his handwork is very, very good. Up next, they drafted Christian Hayes. They didn't have a second round pick.
pause on that. So they were able to keep Leonard Williams. They traded away their second round pick for Leonard Williams. So, and they've signed him to a 3-year deal. So I think that's important to say, because that's what they did with their second round pick, was they acquired Leonard Williams. So, on to Christian Haynes, guard out of UConn. Currently, right now, he's not in the starting rotation, and he was one of my favorite guards coming out of the draft, and I thought he'd be an instant starter. But I do like what they're doing with him. They're letting him develop instead of just throwing him out there. So I think that when he does hit the field, he's going to stay there. So I'm really excited. He is a definite mauler.
There was one team I was for certain was going to take him. Baltimore.
Who's that?
He screamed a Raven to me, and it makes all the sense in the world that McDonald, coming over from Baltimore, would want to bring that style of offense lineman to Seattle.
Well, the one thing that you have to remember, though, is that it's not just what he wants; it's what's going to fit in the offense, and it's what Scott Huff wants there, right? Because it's got to go with what Grubb and Huff want. If the lineman isn't going to fit what they want to do, then don't draft him, right? So Tyrese Knight in the fourth, I was like a lot of Seahawks fans. I was like, what the hell are we doing? He's been a pleasant surprise. He is always around the ball. When he gets to the ball, he makes tackles. And that's the important thing. He actually is really good at slipping blocks. So I'll be really surprised to see how long he stays out of the starting rotation, because I think that under the tutelage of McDonald, I think he is going to really shine.
I thought he was a guy. I wasn't all that impressed with him in his college film, and I don't know if I'm not impressed with someone at, let's say, non-Power 5, it was last year, now Power 4 to G5 level conference, I'm not going to be super high on them.
Granted, but I will definitely give the nod to a guy that makes chicken salad out of chicken shit when it goes to linebackers. So
AJ Barner from Michigan. This feels more like an addition for a blocking tight end than anything, which makes very much sense. You're in the back half of the fourth round. Barner, I don't really trust his ability to go out for routes in the NFL or even catch the ball in the NFL. I don't think he has that speed to get away from people. But I think he's a very good blocker, and he comes from Michigan, which clearly people in the Seahawks organization do know about Michigan. They brought over a coach from the team.
Actually, technically 2 Michigan coaches, if you want to get down to it. So
2. I don't know the second one. I know the one of them.
Well, McDonald was there.
Well, yeah.
And then Jay Harbaugh. So
yeah.
So
I wasn't counting McDonald. My bad.
So the interesting thing about Barner, because I'm in the same boat you are with, definitely a blocker and a great special teams player, by the way. But that's what everybody said about Will Dissly coming out, and he actually turned into a pretty good receiving tight end. He was more of a possession receiver, and you need those as well, right? So it'll just depend upon how they want to use him. but I definitely like the pick in the fourth round.
So I want to lump two guys together. Nehemiah Pritchett and
Nehemiah Pritchett and
Nehemiah.
DJ James.
Can I be honest? I didn't care for them at all. I didn't think these guys would even be drafted.
So the interesting thing about that is I mean, I didn't watch many cornerbacks, to be quite honest, specifically because if I wasn't watching somebody else on the team, I didn't really care about him. Seattle wasn't going to draft a cornerback unless it was like in the seventh round or something, right? Just for depth. So the fact that they draft in the fifth and the sixth round shocked me completely. But I think there's something there. I really do. Um, a lot of draft experts had uh, James going in like the third round and Pritchett in the fifth round. So I was really shocked about that. They've done okay in preseason. They definitely have some things to work on, but they're aggressive at the line, so that's pretty good. Now Satoa Lamea,
I
I
like.
really I really want him to do well, but right now he's struggling. Um, so I liked him at Utah. He was, I mean, he's strong. His problem is his footwork, and he's been getting beat. So I really hope that he can develop because I like him a lot. And then Mike Jarrell, uh, I had no, tell me who looked at Finley film, right? Uh, but uh, he's making waves at camp. He is just this big, strong, raw boned, doesn't really know how to play tackle, but uh, he's been standing up edges and doing pretty well. So I think that they've got something there. It's going to be interesting to see if they think they can get him to the practice squad. I'm not really sure about that. Do you know anything about him at all?
Actually, yes, because I did watch some Finley because I actually heard about him. Uh, to sound it off quickly, raw, 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 raw. He ain't seen the field for at minimum 2 to 3 years.
It,
Big
it,
athletic frame. That's kind of what I came away with it is I thought he would be a priority UDFA. I didn't think he'd get drafted, but I figured someone would bring him in and try to work and develop him.
well, the reason they actually did say the reason why they uh, did draft him was because they didn't think they could get him as a UDFA because he was going to be hot.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I 100% agree with
and
that.
and I don't think that it's going to take 2 to 3 years. Honestly, I think that develop him to the season this season, he could probably be a backup next year
Yeah.
potentially. Yeah. So free agent acquisitions. This is kind of important for Seattle because they did lose quite a few people. They brought in Tyrell Dodges, linebacker, as well as Jerome Baker, and those two are presumably they're starting inside middle linebackers. Farrell Brown, tight end. Jonathan Hankins gets some beef. Kayvon Wallace and Rayshon Jenkins, both safeties, and then they traded for Sam Howell. And then, they just signed Connor Barwin. I had my notes done, but as I'm saying about this, so they just brought him in. So uh, he is projected to start against the Broncos.
Okay. So I want to keep this in mind. I don't have this Seahawks team making the playoffs, but I'm not asking where you have them ranked. If they are out of the playoff picture by, say, week 15, 16, whatever, do you bench Geno and play Sam Howell?
If they're definitely out of the playoffs,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
you got to see what you have in them. But also, it's going to depend because right now, there's a lot of talk that they may be looking to extend Geno
Okay.
and pay him some money. If that happens, then no, you're not going to do that. But if Geno's playing on the current contract, you have to, right?
Well,
One,
maybe you do, and you try and see if he has good film and get a good pick out of him.
so, but I mean, if not, you're playing that we don't know what we're going to do, but we can see what Howell's got. So, absolutely, I agree with that. Um, losses, and I'm going to preface losses just by saying they're not on the team anymore. Uh, there's a couple here that hurt, but Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs are both gone. Jamal, I
Aren't
mean,
they both on the Titans now?
they're both with the Titans. So you know me, I was a huge Quandre Diggs fan, and the sad part about it is watching him play last year. He was making business decision after business decision, and they needed to get that off the team. So, yeah, with those two both gone, Damian Lewis, starting guard last year, he's gone. Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, starting linebackers gone. Bobby will still be in the ring of circle in Seattle. He's just not ready to retire, but he doesn't really fit what Mike McDonald wants to do. Will Disley's gone. Colby Parkinson's gone, and then Drew Lock is going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Giants pretty soon.
Wow.
I had to slide that in there. I'm sorry. Coaches, of course, we've already talked about McDonald, and then Grubb is the new OC. Aiden Durde is the new defensive coordinator. Jay Harbaugh,
special teams.
Special teams. Scott Huff came over with Ryan Grubb, the new offensive line coach, and you can definitely see the difference, in some of what they're teaching. And then I think another thing that's going to be really, really helpful is Leslie Frazier being an assistant coach. Having been there and done that before, but still, being under McDonald, that ability to say, hey, look, what do you think here? Or what have you done here? I think that's important. All too often we get these guys, especially these young guys, that they make mistakes and they're so narrow-minded because they're trying to defend what they're going to say that it causes an issue. And so I like the fact that he has a sounding board, and I like Leslie Frazier. So, that's I thought that was a great acquisition for him. All in all, it's been a really fun offseason for Seattle. And we'll talk about where I think they're going to be at the end of the season a little later on.
Okay, now it's time to move on to the Los Angeles Rams. And I think the only way to start this off properly is saying congratulations on a Hall of Fame career to one of the best players I've ever watched play in Aaron Donald. There is probably not going to be another guy for a couple years at minimum that's going to dominate at the interior defensive line position like Donald did, and maybe ever. He was a freak of nature, one of the greats of all time. So now we have to talk about what do the Rams look at replacing him with, and we'll talk about that in a second when we get into the draft, but their draft overall, before we even talk about their high-end picks that they made, their draft was really effing good. They took a lot of guys who people really were higher on. Even maybe a couple of overdrafts for me personally, but overall, I really do like their draft class. But what do you think about the Rams and how they're going about trying to replace Aaron Donald for the future?
I don't think they're trying to replace him per se, other than fill a void, right? Because you can't replace him. He is, just that freaking good, right? But they brought in Braden Fisk in the second round, and we'll get back to Verse here in the first. I love Verse. I'm not a huge Braden Fisk fan, but he's quick and he can push the pocket, and all that is a lot of Aaron Donald characteristics. The difference is Aaron Donald holds up really, really good against the run, and Fisk not so much, right? But they also brought in, well, we'll get down to him. Jared Verse, I think for their first pick, I love it. I love Verse. He was one of the guys for Seattle that I really would have liked to have seen them draft. I'm really happy with Byron Murphy, but if they hadn't got him, I would not have minded Verse. I think that he is going to be, a force. I really do. You're not as high on him though.
No, I was not. I'm not coming out and saying he was a bad player. I had him in the low 20s. Maybe it was 30 or something on my board. I didn't see the high end that everyone's thought. I thought he would be a serviceable, good NFL pass rusher. I don't think he'll ever be elite. But as a fact, I had Fisk rated higher as a player than Verse.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned that. I don't see that, but
I was a big time Braden Fisk guy because I thought he was a extremely good athlete, and B, just a good football player. He was always at the point of attack, and especially if you watched Florida State yesterday, as we're recording this, this will be coming out Wednesday. I'm pretty sure they clearly missed Verse and Fisk, but with what Fisk did in the run game, mainly was so impressive. He shut down a lot of running holes for teams that went against Florida State, which was very huge because Florida State did play against mainly teams that ran the football, and Fisk was a big part of shutting those teams down.
I like their third round pick. I think that they're going to have a wicked two-headed monster at the running game this year.
Should I just get my last negative about their draft class out of the way?
Go for it.
I was not a Blake Corum guy.
Oh, interesting.
I really wanted to like him because I really had fun watching him at Michigan. But when I watched it, I just kept on thinking, he's getting overdrafted. He's getting overdrafted. Because I just had this thought in my head while I was watching. He just screams guy who excels behind a phenomenal offense line, all the weapons around him, gets a lot of rushing lanes, but when he gets to the big leagues, I don't see him having the same burst and holes to run through. It's going to clearly catch up to him that I would have much rather him go round 5 than round 3. I had him as a low-end round 5 guy.
Wow, we couldn't disagree more on that one. He is shifty. He's got power and he's got quickness. I think that in the third round it was kind of a steal, to be quite honest. But another one, I am higher on Cam Kitchens than you are as well.
I have no problem where Cam Kitchens was drafted, but I know you loved him a bunch.
Yeah, well, I did. I like those big, rangy guys that have attitude. I like him. Yeah, sometimes he can be a little handsy, but he hits hard. I did like him. Interesting, Brennan Jackson. One of the things is one of my favorite pods for Seattle Seahawks. He's a Washington State fan and absolutely loves Brennan Jackson. And every time he did a mock draft, he always picked Brennan Jackson. And I'm not that big on Brennan Jackson, so I think he's going to get buried.
I liked Brennan Jackson a bunch, but you know what my biggest fear is for him? He was a 6-year senior playing against a lot of younger players.
He's going to get buried.
That concerns me because I do think there is talent there. But when I see 6-year senior, my number one rule is be cautious because they've been playing how much longer and they have been bulking up for how much longer. They have a major experience that a lot of these guys they're playing against just don't have because a lot of them are in their first, second, third, or maybe 4th or 5th year if they're lucky. Their next pick was Tyler Davis, who we have been saying, and we just said this recently, that Clemson defensive coordinator does not put guys in the right position. I love Tyler Davis. I actually had him graded as a top 90 prospect because I saw the ability there. I saw the technique there. He just was not put in the right position. This is a guy that's going to pop majorly for the Rams, and I really love that they drafted Fisk and Davis in this class for their future.
I thought he was okay. I wasn't super, super high on him. He shows up and then he's gone and you don't see him for quite a while. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they develop him, but I think you're definitely higher on him than I am. Do you want to talk about the kicker? because
So here's the positives I can say. I know Stanford didn't score a lot, but typically when I looked their scoreboard, they were kicking field goals and they were making them. So, hey, uh, Jordan Whittington, Texas. He was kind of the guy in Texas that there's talent there, but you just don't know how much of there is. I don't expect him to really pop, but I also expect him to make the NFL team.
well, I think we'll have to see on that. You know how it is. They seem to do pretty well with wide receivers.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, did you watch much of Bo Limmer?
No, I did not. I yeah. Here's the thing. I don't like Arkansas offensive linemen.
Here's the thing. I really like Bo Limmer. I think he had a great offensive line coach in Sam Pittman working with him. Is he the best athlete? I probably wouldn't say so. But he had a very good production score on a bad Arkansas team, and where everything was very predictable. They had a decent quarterback, but their quarterback, you really couldn't trust to throw. So he was getting caved in. Teams were loading the box. They were running at him. He had his issues, obviously, but when you're one man blocking 2 to 3 guys, isn't that easy? I think the talent's there. The Rams have shown a very good pedigree of developing linemen. I really like this pick, and I think it could be a home run for them. KT Levinston from Kansas State. I didn't watch a whole bunch on him, so I really can't give an opinion on him. With what I did see, there was talent there, but he did disappear on times. I don't think it's a bad pick, especially in a draft that had a massive fall off at one point. 7th round, why not?
Yeah, well, I mean, when back in there when you're getting linemen back there, you're getting developmental players that you think have some physical traits that you can work with, right? Free agents, the Rams did spend a little bit, even though I don't know where they got the money. They got Tre'Davious White. They brought in your favorite quarterback of all time, Jimmy G. Uh,
Okay, can we real talk? If Stafford gets hurt, this team's screwed. Their quarterback situation behind Stafford is not good.
Nope. You're absolutely right.
And before we actually move on to other acquisitions, was that a mistake by the Rams when you have Stafford a career of getting injured? You don't bring in anyone? And maybe you're going to rely on Stetson Bennett, but Bennett has looked pretty bad in the preseason, and that's not a good sign against backups, more or less. And Jimmy G, we know what he is. He struggled with the Raiders. Is Sean McVay probably going to use him better than Josh McDaniels ever could? Yeah. But I don't think there's much left there. And again, he's another guy that has a long history of injuries.
Yeah, I think it's probably more along the lines of coaching Stetson Bennett than backing up Matthew Stafford.
That is fair, but I feel like when you have a roster like they do, because I think very highly of this Rams team, I think you need to invest something in the backup quarterback spot, because if he does go down, you're going to sink.
Yeah, definitely. They brought in Cam Curl, Jonah Jackson. So their interior line right now is pretty darn good. There's a lot of beef there. They moved their draft pick last year, Steve Avila, in to play center, so he's going to be their starting center. So you're going to have Kevin Dotson, Steve Avila, and Jonah Jackson. It's got to be 1,000 pounds of offensive line just in the interior offensive line. So that is definitely it's a lot of beef.
And Jonah Jackson, as we are recording this, has returned to practice from his injury.
Yeah. So losses, we already talked about it. It's a huge loss. Aaron Donald. One of the things that I'll say is last year, their secondary was not really good. A lot of youth, but a lot of mistakes. And Donald being able to push the pocket and then giving enough time with last year's rookie On the outside, good gosh, I can't think of his name. The Byron Young, excuse me. You know, he was able to flash because you know the pocket was getting pushed. So all in all, I think that they're going to miss uh, Aaron Donald more than they want because their back end still isn't amazing, right? It's still not that great.
And they also lost their defensive coordinator and secondary coach, too, to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so Chris Shula is their new defensive coordinator.
And this is not me saying anything bad about Chris Shula. I think very highly of Raheem Morris. I think that's a tough, tough guy to replace.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Now time to move on to the defending NFC champions. I know how much you love hearing that. The San Francisco 49ers. I think I can say their positives offseason, negatives offseason really quickly with the same thing. They paid some guys that are high-end talent, and they haven't paid guys some that are high-end talent.
All right, so let's get over the Brandon Ayuk thing really quick, especially since you want him to go to Pittsburgh. You and I have been saying this all off season, or we've been talking about this all off season, and I've been saying pretty much without equivocation that they do not want to get rid of him because this is pretty much their year before they have to make some serious changes. If they're going to make a solid run, they need Ayuk in there. Next year they're going to have to pay their quarterback, and whether you think that he is, a top 10 quarterback or not, he's going to get paid $50+ million. So they can't trade Ayuk because they need him.
I will still maintain I don't see Ayuk playing for them this year. And that's not even me thinking he's going to end up Steelers. The Commanders could come in, whatever. I don't see a path that they retain him because they have to pay another guy that's more crucial to their offense in Trent Williams. How they have let a deal for Trent Williams go on for this long, I know this whole Ayuk stuff has taken over. They lose Trent, their season's lost. Like, Trent might be the one guy that will have no F's given about not showing up for the entire season. It wouldn't shock me.
Well, let's face it. I mean, the guy has a lot of money. But, I mean, you said you don't know how this could have gone on. Well, let's face it. It's not like he's not getting paid a ton of money, right? So, I mean, what is his – do you know off the top of your head what is I think he's still owed like $75 million or something.
But I would also argue he is the best lineman in the NFL, and I will say lineman in general. That's how good he is.
You're not getting any arguments from me.
If you are the best, and you just saw how this market exploded in the offseason, and it exploded, don't play for less than with what you are. And he knows, hey, this is my last chance to get a big-time contract. I pretty much had this organization by the balls. I'm going to squeeze until I get the biggest payday I'll ever get.
Yeah, I still, I just don't get. I mean, his cap hit is $10 million, but his base pay is. He's on the books for $26 million, right?
So in total, these next 3 years, based off cap number, and I'm strictly based this off cap number, it's $81 million.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, once again, you are going to have to pay your quarterback next year. I don't get me wrong. I know that Trent Williams is probably the most important player on their team so far as for the offense to be successful. Last year, when he didn't play, they lost every game. So that would be a huge key that, yeah, we definitely need to have him. But, man, $81 million over the next 3 years, And I guess if you're a cap specialist, which I'm not, but if you're a cap specialist, maybe you see if you can turn some of that into signing bonus so you can get it up front. Um, but I mean, what else? What else can you possibly do, right? Because you're competing for a Super Bowl this year before things, like I said, start going by the wayside.
Okay.
And you need him, and you need Ayuk as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to read off. I'm just going to go their first 5 games this season. Let's just say he holds out the first 5 games. They play the Jets week 1. That's not a defense I want Purdy facing without Trent.
No, definitely not.
Vikings week 2. They will blitz you into the ground.
Yes.
Rams, we just got done talking about them. They have a lot of talent, and Byron Young really looked good last year, and they have the talent to go get the quarterback. Patriots, great defense, will put him in the ground. And the Cardinals, which probably is the weakest defense I just mentioned there, will still get him on the ground. If Trent holds out these first five games, I'm not saying they're going winless. I'm making that very clear. I very much think they'll have a winning record. But let's say they lose to the Jets and Rams. That's 3-2. You lost a key divisional game to probably the team you're going to need that tiebreaker over.
Like I said, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that, as a Seahawks fan, I'm loving this whole thing. Let's get that perfect. But the guys do $81 million, right? I mean, what else are you going to do? So, right now on their depth chart, I was just looking on their depth chart while we're looking at that. They actually have Jalen Moore as their starting left tackle.
Okay, Jalen Moore, starting left tackle. Man, I don't know if I like that.
Well, it's not Trent Williams, so if I was their quarterback, I would not like it.
I don't think that's a starting left tackle. I don't think like the top 32 guy.
Well, he's not a top 32 guy, but he's their backup, and they have him at left tackle because Trent hasn't reported.
I don't think the 49ers want to play this game of chicken. I would buckle and pay the man. I would just tell Purdy being like, you want to die or do you want to live? That man's how you're going to live.
Yeah. That being said, let's go on to their draft pick.
Yep. Ricky Pearsall.
I'll let you talk about him because, maybe there's some sort of love there. I don't know.
Oh, I love Ricky. A lot of positives to say. Was a big-time leader in that Gators locker room. And he's one of the guys I will say that on because I have knowledge of the Florida Gators. I know he was given the number 1 for offense, which is a big deal. He really was their best offensive player last year. Maybe not most talented, but most reliable. Has very good hands. Will catch the ball if it's just thrown in his general direction. Good route runner. Tries to block. I'll give him that. Still needs to work on that. But he does feel very like a replacement for Ayuk. Not saying if they move him now, but at some point they're probably going to move off him. Ricky can fit that role perfectly.
All right. Renardo Greer, cornerback. Green.
Yeah.
Quarterback. I can't read my writing.
Here's what I'll say. I like him as a nickel. God, I hope he never plays outside.
Well, they've got pretty good outside DBs right now. Dominic Puny at guard. I like that. I like drafting him there. He was another one of those guards that I really liked in the draft. So I think they got a good one.
I would agree.
Yeah, he's got to, of course, develop a little bit, but Malik Mustafa, I think we both liked him.
I didn't have a strong opinion on him, to be completely honest.
Okay.
He was there.
I like guys that hit, so that's just me. Isaac Guerrero,
who was my top running back in this past draft.
Really?
I really liked him a bunch. I think he has the most explosive capability, especially in a Kyle Shanahan-based offense. I think he can very much pop. Don't know how much of the field he'll be seeing because that running back room is loaded, and CMC is clearly the lead guy.
Well, right now they're showing him on as third string, so
It's not bad considering Jordan Mason's their backup.
Jacob Cowing.
Loved him as well. I watched a whole bunch of Arizona games, and he was the second receiver in Arizona. Don't get me wrong, but he was a very talented second receiver. He got open, he made good catches, very talented route runner. This is a guy who I think San Francisco can very much use, especially considering Deebo Samuel is getting up there in age. You are going to have to replace him as well at some point, especially the play style he plays at.
Jarrett Kingston.
Didn't watch.
Well, yes, you did. He was a USC guard, right?
No, I honestly didn't watch him. When I watched him, it was watching Caleb Williams get killed, probably.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think drafting USC offensive lineman was a good thing this year. That's the point I was going to make. So hopefully he proves me wrong. But yeah, I just not and Tatum Bethune. So
very good downhill player, I would say. I don't know how much I rely on him on the back foot, but I think going downhill, he's got some talent there.
Far cry though from Fred Warner. So,
and we're gonna get into losses here for a second. I think a big loss a lot of people haven't talked about, and he will come back at some point, but not having Dre Greenlaw for a bit is gonna suck.
I 100% agree, and I actually had that down in my notes to put down because he is one of the best in the league, right? So let's go with who they brought in first, because they brought in Leonard Floyd, and they definitely need him on the opposite side of Bosa. They brought in Javonte Campbell. I think he's just going to be a backup. Malik Collins. Yatu Gross-Matos, defensive end. Josh Dobbs as a backup quarterback, and then Rock Ya-Sing. So the thing here's the thing, and we're going to get into this. Their depth,
bad.
They lost Eric Armstead. They lost Clellan Ferrell, who played a lot last year. Randy Gregory, Javon Kinlaw. Chase Young went away, and they just acquired him for the playoff run last year. So if you think about the defensive players that they've lost over the last 3 years, that's like an all-star lineup in and of itself. And it's going to catch up with them, especially since some of their contracts, like Brandon Ayuk and like, Trent Williams and
Warner's paid a bunch, Nick Bosa.
Mr. Irrelevant. I'm talking about the guys that still need to be paid, right?
Oh yeah.
Your depth is where you're taking the hit. And last year their defense stayed pretty healthy until the Super Bowl. But I mean, it's gonna catch up with them, and that's why I continually say that this, in my opinion, is their swan song. This year is their swan song. If they don't get the Super Bowl this year, I think this roster next year is completely different.
Yeah, and a lot of that depends on if they're going to pay Purdy, which I still don't see them giving out a big contract to Purdy. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're wrong, but we have a little bet on that. So
yeah, we do. We have actual money at stake. That's how confident I am. Purdy's not getting a big-time contract. It's time to move on to Rookie of the Years for this. And we have an offense defensive. Offense, this is the most chalk pick, but it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
I would agree. He's got there. So here's the thing. They're going to force feed him the ball.
Yeah.
They need to, and they're going to.
Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to be the two guys catching all the passes in Arizona. Defensive, I debated on a couple guys here. I went with Byron Murphy.
I have Byron Murphy down as well.
I think Murphy's he's gonna start early. I don't know how much starting time the other guys are gonna get. Murphy will start. He will be put in a position to succeed because the spot he is playing is something that Baltimore very much prioritized. Mike McDonald coming from Baltimore, I expect him to prioritize that, and you can get a lot of pass rush success from that spot.
I agree. And he's solid against the run as well. So, defensive player of the year.
Who do you have? Because I think you're going to be shocked by mine.
Well, I'm going Bosa.
Same team, different player. I went Fred Warner. Strictly because I think Fred Warner is just the linchpin of that defense.
I mean, so here's the thing. You are not wrong, but sacks stat out, right? So no matter what, because you're right, Fred is amazing. Just like, former Seattle Seahawk Bobby Wagner, he was the linchpin that made it all work, but the other guys on the defensive line were the ones that got the sacks and everything else. And so Bosa he's a pocket pusher, and he's the best edge in the NFC.
Ooh,
less
Micah
maybe.
Parsons. Ooh.
I just said less maybe before you overrode me. Micah Parsons. It's between the two of them.
I will add, though, I think not having Drake Greenlaw means Fred Warner's going to have to take a bigger role. And as crazy as that sounds, I think he can do it, and I think he'll succeed.
It'll be interesting. He can only be a couple places. But that's one of the reasons why they brought in Devondre Campbell. I just don't see – he is nowhere near –
I disagree Fred Warner can be in a couple places because I swear everywhere that ball goes, he's right there. Offensive MVP, who do you got?
No, I'm going to let you go first.
I have Matt Stafford.
Okay, that's fair.
I think very highly of this Rams team. I think the Rams are going to go as far as Stafford can take them, and I think Stafford can take them pretty far. He's got a great receiving core, maybe the best core he's ever had in his career. Got a good running back, got a good offensive line, has a great play caller. I just really think highly of the Rams. I think Stafford is going to have a big-time season.
Geno Smith. Did I lose you? All right.
Even I wasn't this biased taking Jaylen Warren.
So hear me out here. All right. Over the last 2 years, Geno has been top 10 in touchdowns, in completion percentage, in big play throws, comebacks, fourth quarter comebacks. And that's with an abysmal offensive line, right? Didn't have a center, was always getting pressured up the pocket. Last year, his right side caved, almost every snap. You go back to that Dallas game, and their play call on that fourth down was to leave Micah Parsons unblocked.
Sounds like you have some issue with Shane Waldron.
Well, I do at that as well. But they brought in an offensive line coach that is actually gelling this unit. Bringing in Connor Barwin, I think, is going to solidify that front end. And here's the thing. I also like some of the depth that Seattle has on the offensive line now. I do have concerns that right tackle still might be an issue, but they brought in Fant, who, last year in Texas showed out really, really well. But, Oluwatime from Michigan, he's their backup right now for center. So I like where this offensive line is going. And they have the best offensive weaponry from top to bottom in the NFC West. And that's saying a lot. I understand that. But I'm going to live and die off that sword. Is Noah Fant Kittles? No, he's not. but he's really good if used properly. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigma. I really like the addition of Laviska Shenault. And he's going to be there for Jake Bobo made a lot of really, really good plays last year. He's their fifth. And now you go to the running backs and Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I think Kenneth Walker's a top 5 running back in the league. He's been playing behind a subpar offensive line and still made amazing plays. Zach Charbonnet last year showed that me and a few other Seahawks fans, maybe a few other 100,000 Seahawks fans, didn't know what we were talking about when we said it was a lame duck pick. I really like him. So if Geno can do what he did with the offensive line that he had before, I think with this offensive line, he is going to light it up.
Man, I wish I had a face cam for that entire time, because everyone would have been laughing at my reactions. Safe to say I don't agree with you on them having the best in the NFC West. I would actually put them third behind the Rams and 49ers.
Fair enough.
Let's go to division order. I had the Cardinals taking last place. I still lacking talent there.
So do I.
Seahawks in third.
And I have the Rams in third.
49ers in second.
Wow. I have the Seahawks in second.
I had the Rams taking the division.
I have the 49ers taking the division.
And just because I don't know if we'll have enough time to film a overall NFL predictions, I'm going to say this here in case we don't. The Los Angeles Rams are my NFC Super Bowl pick.
Wow. They're not mine. So, and the Seahawks aren't mine either, just so everybody knows.
I don't know. With how biased you were, some people might think it.
When we get off here, we can debate this a little bit more, but because for safety time or for time factor, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm gonna
go Hawks.
Sorry, I'm just putting that down to cut that last second. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. The final one will be the AFC West. We'll be recording that. We saved the Super Bowl champs to do last. A lot to talk about. We got a young rookie quarterback tearing up the preseason. Bo Nix to talk about. Your favorite head coach is back in the NFL, and Jim Harbaugh. The Raiders are there, and that's going to pretty much be a fun episode to talk about. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe. If you like this, hit the like. And if you have anything to say about his biased Seahawks ramblings, please go down in the comment section. I'll make sure he reads every single one. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bring it.